Welcome to RailChat number 10. It's great to be back. Well, I mean, back from what? I don't know. It's not like we ever left. It's just we are busy with life, I guess. My name's David. I'll be your host today for RailChat number 10, where we'll be talking about a bunch of subjects. Yes, subjects. It's almost like we plan those things in advance. No, we don't. So on this very improvised Sunday afternoon stream on March 3rd, 2024, what's on the agenda? Well, first of all, we're going to talk about our visit to the Via Rail Montreal Maintenance Center on, was it last week or two? I think it's been 2 weeks already, so I'll try my best. It's been a long time. We'll share some photos of what we've seen and obviously talk a bit more about what we had the chance to talk about in the videos we've posted already. Also, we got finally, after a few months, a Stage 2 update in Ottawa, which is, you know what they say. If you start with expectation, you're going to be disappointed. Well, that's pretty much where we're at this point with Stage 2 South. What else? What else is there to talk about? Well, obviously there's all the adventures of building transit in Quebec. For those of you that might not be aware, it's not going great. So we'll talk about that too. And I think that's pretty much it for right now. So how about we get started and talk about Via Rail. So let's see if it actually works. I'm trying something new today and it seems to be working somewhat, so we'll take it. Via Rail's Montreal Maintenance Center, which is located in Pointe Saint-Charles. So it's a neighborhood in Montreal. For those that might not be exactly familiar with the location, you have most of downtown Montreal surrounding it. So you have Gare Centrale, which is located about, well, if you're on the REM, sorry, that's about 5 minutes on the train. But if you're driving, it's closer to 10-15 minutes. So the Via Rail Montreal Maintenance Center is pretty much one of the most important maintenance facility Via Rail operates currently. They have 4 of them, one in Montreal, one in Toronto, one in Winnipeg, and one in Vancouver. So as you may guess, Winnipeg and Vancouver are mostly preoccupied with trains that travel between Toronto and Vancouver, but also the trains that are traveling the Prince Rupert and Churchill, for example. They're more focused on day-to-day maintenance, so routine inspections between trips and make sure everything's working right. Meanwhile, Montreal plays a more strategic role with the long distance fleet. So they are in charge of major programs of refurbishments, but also repairs and annual maintenance inspections. So if you haven't had a chance yet to watch the video we have on the channel about our visit, we go more in details about what it means, and we had the pleasure of exploring a few of the rail cars that are undergoing the maintenance programs in Montreal. So make sure you watch it if you haven't already. We'll also have an article on the website in the coming days, whenever I have a chance to finish it, where we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the same topics, but also have more photos to go along and show you some exclusive behind the scenes shots that we had the chance to get during our visit. So how about we do get started? Whoa, that's the wrong screen. It's almost like I planned those things in advance. So just give a bit more context about the physical location of the Montreal Maintenance Center. Like I said, Pointe Saint-Charles, you have a facility that's consisting of one main building where you have, if I recall correctly, 3 main maintenance halls. So the one we visited is the one on this, thanks to Google Earth for the imagery, by the way, located south. So the one further south on the image, basically that's where most of the major long distance project maintenance happens. So in this example, for example, that's where we visited. The other halls are mostly in comparison for the. I should maybe capture the cat. There you go. That makes more sense now that I have a cursor on showing. So this is the part we visited, basically the southern hall, if we can call it this way. The other halls are pretty much where the routine maintenance inspections and also work on the corridor fleet for the most part happens. This is more destined for major projects. So let's just zoom out. And this is a map you can find inside of the entrance of the maintenance center. So as we say, we have the main building, which is the part we visited. You also have on site a wheel shop where wheels are machined and inspected to make sure they're still performing to the expected standards for operation, as well as the fueling plant, which is basically where trains are filled, well, locomotives, sorry, are filled to head out for their service. Obviously, you have a lot of trains that navigate through the Montreal Maintenance Center, mostly as they undergo their routine inspection and daily checks after service. So it's really a nevralgic point for Via Rail. And obviously, it goes without saying, the main point of we discussed it in a video, but the main point of the visit was really to give a sense to the medias and Rail Fans Canada by that occasion, a sense of how much work goes into maintaining the long distance fleet. If you are not aware, obviously the long distance fleet is mostly composed of Bud stainless steel cars of different varieties, including the dome cars, the bullet lounge, diner cars, sleeper cars, standard seating cars that have been built for the most part between 1946 and 1955. So most of those cars are approaching 70 to 80, nearing 75 years old at the earliest. So they are particularly old. In comparison, if you look at Amtrak, with their long distance fleet composed mostly of superliners, so the bi-level cars that you might be familiar with, those cars are on average nearing 35 years. So we have a fleet that's particularly old in Canada for long distance train. We discussed it previously in the other rail chats. We also have videos about it. What about the corridor fleet? Well, the corridor fleet is in a different bucket of operations, if we can call it this way. So the corridor fleet has already a replacement program in progress. You might be familiar with it. Obviously, this includes the Siemens Charger and Venture train sets that we are seeing more and more along the corridor routes. I had the chance to ride one of the very first train set in service back in October 2022. November 2022. So it's been over a year now, and more of them are entering service. So as those trains get into service, the other trains are used on the corridor. So the LRC cars, the GE P42DC locomotives, and a bunch of basically a mix of Renaissance and HEP units are going to be removed from service there. They're likely going to be redistributed elsewhere on the network, but obviously there's limitations based on what you can do with those cars, since most of them are set up for corridor operation. 2024 is gonna turn out to be a really important year for VRL, especially when it comes to the long distance fleet, in the sense that it's pretty much time to act regarding what we need and from a long distance fleet in the future. The reason why I say time to act is because per VRL's own estimate, basically the current fleet, even with all the programs that are on their way to maintain and refresh the cars as much as possible, they expect to get another 10 to 12 years of life expectancy out of them. So currently that means that brings us to 2035. And as time passes, it's expected that some of those cars will not be able to be kept in service even with the current programs. The reason why is because there's a rolling inspection process that happens with all those rail cars to make sure that they are safe for operations, but also able to accommodate the passengers on board. And as time passes, obviously it's expected there's going to be some of the older or more rundown cars are not going to be able to maintain the expected service or standard safety standards required by Transport Canada or by VRL. As such, it's expected that unless a new fleet is procured, there's going to be obviously a need for service cuts on long distance routes. It's cuts are never a fun topic to discuss, but the reality is that as it stands right now, the fleet needs those new cars. Back in 2018, there were about 210 long distance cars in the fleet, and now via André Lacroix, which we had. I'm pretty sure it's not Lacroix. I'm sorry, André, if I'm mixing names there, but Their own estimates puts it around 175, 180 cars currently. So they already have a decrease, and this number is not expected to get any better in the future. So, well, there's a need for a new fleet, and based on the very specific needs for such a long distance fleet, because you're not just buying run-of-the-mill cars. Regardless, at the end of the day, you're going to need cars that accommodate the fact that people travel long distance for multiple days on those trains. So you're going to need diner cars, you're going to need sleeper cars. There's a way more specific set of requirements than just a regular corridor fleet like we've had replaced previously. So they expect to take it. They expect the replacement program to take up to 10 years to replace the entire fleet. And this is also in part to make sure that there's enough cars in service throughout so that the service levels are not affected too much. Obviously, if you don't replace it, you're going to have a steep decline as time goes on. So they presented options to the federal government earlier in 2023. The conversations are ongoing between the government and VRL, but they presented multiple options that would, for what a possible replacement fleet could look like. So we are keeping an eye out for more information as time passes. Obviously, we can expect to hear more in 2024. Normally, they don't reach out to the media without having any idea of what's going to happen in the future. So hopefully we have more information to share somewhat sooner than later, but we can expect probably to see an RFP or an RFQ by some point during the year, assuming the government is willing to fund such an endeavor. So let's take a look at some pictures and go over a visit. Those photos are going to be posted on railfans.ca at some point in the future alongside the article where I'm going to go more in details about our visit. We're going to talk about the maintenance operations and obviously the need for a new long distance fleet. If you haven't done so already, I'm repeating myself, but do watch that video that Shane published earlier this week. It's been a really great visit. We're really thankful for VRL for opening their doors to us and other medias to get a chance to look inside a facility that really is closed off normally. The opportunities to visit the Montreal Maintenance Center have been really limited in the past, and it's really great to have had that chance to document it, but also to share it with everyone here. So our first photo is, well, if you cannot guess, it's inside a maintenance center. I know it's shocking. I hope I'm not shocking too much people here. But basically, here we're looking down the hall in the facility, the southern hall of the main building. So the layout of the facility is 5 tracks. Sorry. There's 3 tracks that are set up for car maintenance. So that's where that's the one we see here in the forefront. The 2 tracks at the back are for locomotive work. We're going to talk a bit more about each as we go along, but the important part to remember is that each car has to come in this building at least once a year for a major inspection to make sure that everything is up to norms. And there's daily operations before the start of service every day. There's daily maintenance. There's more regular maintenance operations also. It's not just once a year and then we don't look at it again. It's really part of a rigorous process that we're going to discuss a bit more as we go along. And obviously because of the facility, the nature of the facility itself, you're going to have both long distance cars and corridor cars being maintained in the same hall. So if you look closely, you can see we have 1, 2, 3 HEP cars in the front, and at the back we have 2 LRCs plus another HEP also. So we'll talk about them a bit more later on. This is an example of some of the work that's part of refurbishment projects. So this is, if I recall, one of the diner cars. I'm blanking on the name right now, but I think it's 6401 or something along those numbers. So this one is undergoing the refurbishment project as of right now, and it's basically it's in the state where all the components inside have been taken out, and basically it's stripped to the bare bone level. We'll show you inside afterwards. You can see also that somewhat favorable, but because the cars are built so the HEP cars are Budd stainless steel cars, which have underwent in the late 80s, early 90s refurbishment project to have Eden power support retrofitted. So when those cars were acquired by Canadian National and Canadian Pacific, they were powered by steam for coal for the heating system. When they were switched to HEP with Eden power to be able to work with the F40 locomotives that were acquired in the 80s, well, they basically ripped out everything that was related to steam and replaced it with their necessary components for Eden power support. I might be mixing the dates. I'm sorry if it's the case. I'm sure someone will be more than happy to correct me in the comments if I'm really off, so yay. On this picture, basically, so the reason why I'm mentioning that is obviously those cars might seem in great condition from the start. The reason why is because stainless steel kind of hides the damage and structural defects a bit better than other type of materials, say aluminum, like is used on the LRC. So while the cars themselves might seem still good for a long time at first glance, rigorous inspections are needed to really establish the condition and state of each of those cars. So in this particular picture, what we're looking at is basically the replacement of one of the freshwater tanks used on the cars. So this is what provides clean drinking water for passengers, but also in the kitchens for the preparation of meals, snacks, and other elements. Those tanks are basically what you can see here underneath the train cars. So I do not recall if it's... I believe this one was already replaced and they're in the process of flushing it and clearing it, or if they're starting the process. I'm very sorry not to be exactly able to tell right away, but basically it requires the dismantlement of the tubing in those parts, the removal of the tank, the replacement, the soldering of new tubes, making sure that everything's clean, sanitary, and ready to welcome clean drinking water, and obviously no leaks. It's part of an ideal situation. This is also a great opportunity for VRL to have to perform an inspection of the underside. So obviously you have, as you can see on this photo, if you look towards the top of the image, you have a lot of piping as well as conduits for electrical wires and other elements that are readily accessible. So it's an important part of the maintenance regimen for those vehicles. This is also a great opportunity to have the bow gates taken off the cars. Obviously, wheel maintenance is a whole separate issue, so the cars are maintained by VRail on site for the most part. They have a lathe to trim the wheels, basically to make sure they're still round as much as possible and provide a comfortable experience for passengers. Also, it's a great opportunity for them to check the mounting points for the bow gates. So I do not believe we see one exactly on this picture, but you can see that, like, this is the two bow gates related to this specific car. They can be moved around. So the way the facility is laid up is basically the bow gates can be detached from the cars, so they can be wheeled off for maintenance at other parts of the facility if needed, and obviously create space for them to do the inspections. So this is the inside of this car as it stands right now. So as you can see, obviously everything was removed. There's not much to see there. So this is the interior of a diner car that's used on the Canadian and other long distance routes. Obviously there's no fittings, there's no furniture, there's not even a floor. Basically, as part of their process, they're removing every panel inside of the car, cleaning it, making sure there's no damage, so they are able to conduct the repairs needed during the visit. So everything is scheduled to be done all at once, so they are able to maximize the time, maximize the amount of work they're able to do on each car. As you can see here, we have the stainless steel floor and the blue, I'll call it wrap. I'll call it the blue wrap on the sides to protect the windows and exterior panels while the process is ongoing. So this one has been basically everything has been removed out of it already. So I wouldn't want to say halfway through the project because I'm not exactly sure they would classify it as such, but this is basically what an HEP car looks when it's brought down to the most basic trims inside. The following photo is what it turns into once you put the furniture back. And so this is 6411. Is it actually 6411? I know it's Imperial, the name of this one. So it's no, 6411 is a locomotive. So 8411 maybe. I feel like I should know the name. Yes, 8411 Imperials. There you go. So that's one that's been under throughout the program already and is pretty much complete. You can see the brand new furniture installed throughout, the trimmings, the fittings, everything is updated as part of the process to make sure that it's ready to welcome more passengers once it returns in service. So this one is in the final stage of the process. It should be in a relatively near future able to return into regular service on the Canadian and other routes. Once this one is reintroduced in service, another one will take its place into the program, so to make sure that there's as much fleet availability as possible to ensure that service can continue as scheduled on those trains. Particular feature that I want to mention, I really enjoy. It was the first time I had the chance to step into a diner car of Via Rail, so I really like those glass fixtures with a bunch of birds. I mean, okay, I know it sounds very nondescript the way I'm describing it, but I do find that they are really they are iconic of a certain era of rail travel that maybe we're not used to anymore, especially when you compare it with, for example, the Venture train sets, which are really great. They're modern, they're bright, they have a more sterile interior than those trains. So it's nice to see that those kind of elements are not getting taken out even as part of those refurbishments. They're trying to keep the character of the trains as they were before the program itself, obviously with more modern fixtures whenever possible and make sure it meets modern requirements. We didn't have a chance to tour the kitchen of one of the diner cars as they were still working onto it, but basically it's a great opportunity for them also to take out all the components that are inside and replace them with more modern one, make sure they're up to safety standards and compliance with all applicable laws to make sure it's a safe environment for the staff to work in. So this is what we had the chance for the most part to see about the cars undergoing maintenance. So this is, like I said, it's a more of a refurbishment project than just a regular maintenance process. On the other side of the hall, we have the locomotive section. So this is where they do, well, if it's not obvious by the picture and what I'm saying right now, this is where they're working on the locomotives. This includes basically all of the maintenance, regular maintenance projects, inspections, as well as more complicated refurbishment projects. Some of them are outsourced to other suppliers depending on the difficulty, but a lot of expertise is developed in-house. It was explained to us during our visit that, I'll go back to the previous picture, but most of you might be aware that Bud, as far as I'm aware, still doesn't exist as an entity anymore. So Bud Railcar the Bud Railcar Company basically was it became defunct in 2014, but it was acquired in parts by Bombardier. So some of the parts are still available for the cars themselves, but not everything. So a lot of parts need to be built by Via Rail in Montreal and their other suppliers to make sure that they're able to have a fleet that's functioning at any time. So this is a problem that's becoming even more difficult as the cars are aging more and more, but also it's a problem that we see somewhat with the locomotives. So the F40s are built by GM, General Motors, the Electromotive, oh my god, I never remember, is it diesel? Electromotive Division, EMD from GM. So the F40s, while the P42s are built by General Electric. So the those locomotives are the P42s are used only in the corridor. You're not going to see them on long distance routes, but once the new Siemens locomotives are all delivered, they're going to be out. They're going to be retired completely, so we're not going to see them anymore. However, the F40s are still going to serve on long distance routes until a full replacement is procured. This means that those cars still have another 10 to 12 years to operate in service, even though they were acquired in 1987. They've already went a full refurbishment project where they were modernized to more recent standards, if I could call it this way. Basically, they got a new and then power unit. They got refresh prime mover and so on and so forth to make sure they're as efficient as possible. So the projects required are very particular to each fleet of locomotives they have and the needs to in operations. So this is looking down the two tracks we use for locomotive works. So the way it's set up is you have an elevated platform, which basically puts you in line with the above the frame for the locomotive, so you're able to look inside the door, the service door, so you can see the prime mover, the HEP. You're at the same level as that. In addition to this, you have a platform below, which gives you basically sights under the bogies and other equipments. We'll look at it a bit later on. In this case, most of them are undergoing routine maintenance, but we're going to talk about a more special project that's happening in the back of this photo. We'll move along. So, well, I thought I had one more photo there, but I guess I forgot about it. My bad. So if we look a bit more closely, this might not look like much, but this is a locomotive, at least what's left of one. So the F40s are going to undergo, they're used for the long distance fleet, are going to undergo another maintenance program. So this is a prototype car where they're in the process of tearing it down to his more basic, to his frame, to figure out the amount of work needed to get another 10 to 15 years out of them. So this is pretty much what's left of one. I do not have a car number for anyone about this one, but what you can see is that there's not much left. In comparison, this is, oh my god, 6419, that's... I don't recall. I'm blanking out, so sorry for that. But basically, this is more to give you a sense of how big the facility is, because you have on each track about 4 cars or 4 locomotives, and you have 5 tracks wide just in this single hall. And the other 2 are even bigger. So you can see there's a lot of space. This is to accommodate all the work that's needed to happen in this facility. And just to show you what I was talking about a bit earlier, this is what it looks like when you're off the elevated platform. So you're able to see there's a level underneath the platform where bogies are accessible, but also all the components that might be under or part of the frame, as well as all the components on top. So this is a really important facility for VRL, obviously. I think goes without saying that without the Montreal Maintenance Center, some of the maintenance operations would have to be outsourced, and a lot of expertise for those operations do not exist anywhere else than Montreal as it stands right now because of how old the fleet is. And we don't want to do too much preaching for the choir here, but it goes without saying that it's time to seriously consider replacing the long distance fleet. As much as they have an history, as much as they are a story, they've been an important part of VRL. It remains that there's a certain point where you cannot do, like they say they do miracles on the daily, and I get why. Because when you look at how much care it takes to maintain those cars, there's a point where it's diminishing returns. And obviously, as much of a band-aid you can put on the problem, it's still going to come back at some point or another. So I really want to tip my hat off to everyone at VRL for what they've been achieving with the fleet. It's quite remarkable that we don't hear about much more issues than what we hear in the media currently. I really hope that the government comes through and helps fund a new fleet for the long distance service. But in addition of that, also includes more equipment for potential expansions of the long distance fleet, because obviously there's certain services that decreases over the years, namely, oh my god, I don't want to misquote things. The Canadian got a service decrease to improve reliability of travel times because of availability, but also traffic on shared tracks with CNCP. But also, obviously, there's I believe there's certain routes that could benefit from an increase in service, and if the new fleet allows VRL to have this opportunity, I think it's a great time to invest in the long-term future of the long-distance fleet. One more photo I want to bring out is this lovely dome car. Well, first of all, I want to mention that this one is here for Oh my god, it's not. Why am I thinking Sidley Park? It's not. They don't have a name. So this is one of the famous domes, dome skyline cars. Yes, there we go. Sorry. So what's great about those ones is basically they obviously have a upper level with a, if it's not obvious by the name, a dome above your head, which provides incredible sight lines all around. I would just want to say that the seating is really comfortable. Like I was, we spent obviously a very limited time in there, but we have more pictures of this car. I really hope to upload a bunch of them on the railfans.ca website over the coming weeks, so we have more of an archive of what the equipment looks like on those routes. But I just want to say that like it's been a really incredible opportunity from VRL to get us to see those facilities and share them with you. So we really hope you, if you have any questions, do feel free to leave them in the comments of those respective videos, or you can also, you know, I'm gonna chill a bit here while we're at it. We have a Discord server, railfans at so if you do railfans.ca/discord, if I recall, that should bring you to our Discord server, where we have channels to discuss a variety of topics, including via rail and other things. So I'll just share the link with everyone in the chat if you haven't had the chance yet to check it out. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers the VRL the Montreal Maintenance Center of VRL. And I once again I really want to say thanks to VRL for that. Like it's been they got in touch with us in early mid-February, and like it's been something where we are really excited to have the chance to share with everyone. So many thanks again to them, and we hope to have other opportunities in the future to show you around VRL equipments and facilities. If you have ideas also of things you'd like us to cover in the future, do reach out. We're always happy to look into them and see if we can make it work with VRL or any other transit agency, obviously. So this is VL. Let's get onto another part of what I wanted to discuss this time around. Ottawa. Yeah, because we don't talk enough about Ottawa here at railfans.ca. Oh, speaking of the video. So in the news recently, I don't know if you've heard, but we finally got an update on Stage 2 LRT in Ottawa. And unfortunately for us, the news are not exactly what we might have wanted to hear. So let's dive in, shall we? So Stage 2... I mean, I don't feel like I have to explain much what is Stage 2 in Ottawa, but I'll give the Cliff Notes version just for those that might not be familiar as... there you go. For those that might not be as familiar as we are here, but basically Stage 2 South... Stage 2 is 3 extension projects on the all-train network. One of them being Stage 2 South, which will include Line 2 from Bayview all the way to Limebank, as well as Line 4, which is going to be an airport shuttle between, well, the airport and South Quay Station on Line 2, as well as the west and east extension of Line 1. We'll talk about that a bit more. So let's start with Stage 2 East. Obviously, there's been a lot of progress over the last few months. We showcased quite a bit of it in our snapshots on railfans.ca, but and also on the Discord. Huge thanks to everyone that's been sharing with us some of their own snapshots so we can discuss them. This is the photos that were provided by OC Transpo and the Stage 2 office to the city in an update to council earlier this week. I've been talking too much. So basically, we're just going to go over them really quickly because I don't want to spend too much time on the individual photos. But as you can see, progress in the east is really coming along. Some of the stations, particularly Jeanne d'Arc, is pretty much complete. If you recall, Shane had the chance to visit it in last summer, if I recall. It's been a long time already. But Stage 2, yeah, the stations in the east have been really progressing well. And the installation of the overhead catenary is also progressing along the line. So they have started testing earlier last week. So on February 26th, we had the first train go further east from Blair. So it traveled between, like I don't have photos of Blair here, but it traveled between let's use the awesome Railfans map. I do sound like a shield somewhat, eh? So it traveled between Blair and went all the way to Montreal Road station. We have a video where I had the chance, along with some other rail fans, to follow the train along its tracks to Montreal Road. Gotta say, I was somewhat surprised by the speed for which they were going. On some segments, they were going almost up to 10 kilometers an hour. OC Transport also has their own videos about the event, but it's been really nice to see this milestone finally happen. As it stands right now, from my last drive along the alignment, the OCS installation is for the most part complete between Blair and Jeanne d'Arc. Work is still progressing beyond that point, so the poles have been installed all the way to trim. However, the fixtures on the poles which hold the OCS itself, so the overhead cables, are still being installed from Covent Glen onward, all the way to trim. So for now, we expect trains to slowly but surely make progress along the alignment. I guess at some point we're going to see one train go from Montreal to Jeanne d'Arc in the coming months, hopefully. This is a very first milestone on this part. So I just want to bring it up before I forget. Stations in the east have been progressing well. Most of the fittings are being installed. The concrete pours, all the structural elements have been installed already. It's mostly, I don't want to say finishing touches, but we're approaching a point where all the stations are going to be complete, which is really nice to see in the east. It's very encouraging in terms of the timeline to see that they are progressing at somewhat of the pace we expected from them. Progress has been really good throughout the year. Gotta give it to them, and I do hope we continue to see really great progress in 2024 so we can ride the line in 2025. Traction Power's substation installation is for the most part complete. Catenary installation, we're talking about that. All those photos, the slides also are available on railfans.ca, by the way, if you want to check them for yourself. This is the first train testing we're talking about just before. You can even see your loyal rail fans here in the corner watching the train. It was fun. Seriously, it was a lot of fun. So there's more activities planned in the east over the coming construction season to make sure that obviously the testing can continue. So they expect by summer all stations to be completed, the OCS to be completed by spring, so that testing can happen throughout the year. Traffic input. So for now, the timeline has somewhat slipped. Previously, it was expected trial running / handover would be in the first quarter of 2025. Now it seems to be more in line with the second quarter. So expected to be more towards hopefully before the summer of 2025. We'll keep an eye out for any update on that and make sure to share it with everyone here, obviously. There's really a lot of emphasis put on the fact that the city is not going to want to cut testing as close as they did last time around. So there's integration activities that are going to happen that will be more in depth than what was done previously with the with the Confederation line opening in 2019 to avoid those kind of situations. I honestly believe them. Like, I don't think they're talking in bad faith or anything like that. I actually believe they have a plan and hopefully are able to deliver on it. So it's worth also remembering that of the 3 extensions, this is one of the least delayed so far. So the original estimate for the east was, if I recall, by the end of 2024. This is not. I don't believe this is gonna be end of 2024. Like even if testing was to go smoothly, I think they're gonna want to have a full winter of tests before they go ahead with everything else. But at least it's good to see that this part of the project, the timeline, hasn't slipped as much as, for example, west or south. Speaking of south, I mixed the order in my mind. Let's talk about the west then. Construction's progressing. Progressing. So we have concrete pours at Kitchissippi and at Westboro, which was a former transitway station. So work is definitely ongoing throughout. The trenches where the train, so the tunnel where the trains will be in the trench for the stations, because the stations are going to be wide open as part of the tunnel. So there's progress also on that front. Platform, the installation of the platform and the concrete pours to create the building, the stations themselves. So earlier this summer, if I recall, in June, there was a milestone where the entire tunnel was dug down, and basically they were in the process of building the tunnel itself. So we should see more work on that front in the coming months, hopefully. Hopefully we have, they expect to complete the tunnel this year, to continue with track installation, so there's that. The same goes at New Orchard, which is far more advanced than Sherbourne. If you look by comparison, this is Sherbourne, so they're both, for the most part, a copy of each other. So both stations are built using the same principles and the same conditions. And my guess is they're doing New Orchard first, and then are going to go back to Sherbourne once they have built the station. Somewhat similar to what they've done in the east with Jeanne d'Arc and Covent Glen. So you can see here there's steel, the steel frames for the overhead protection, I guess. It's coming up. Sorry, I feel like I should have a much better term for that. You can also see parts of the tunnel being covered already, so they're making good progress on that front. The cut and cover obviously is progressing. So this is the top side of so obviously they dig a trench first, then they pour concrete, and then they top it off. This is basically the top side of the tunnel, so it's making really good progress. Hopefully we'll have, like I said, good news by the end of the year. This is what it looks when you're inside the tunnel. Shane had the chance last summer to go walk in one at during his visit of Lincolnfield Station. So this is a more recent photo, but if you have a chance, I believe it's the Lincolnfield tour that has it in there. You can see a bit more footage from inside the tunnel, like the process which they followed to build it. Well, there you go. This is a tunnel. Shocking, I know. And we have Lincolnfield, which is one of the western station that's the most advanced as it stands. I believe this is, I don't want to say substantially complete. I don't think it's a term they want us to use, nor use themselves, so I'm not going to use that term. I'm just going to say they made significant progress on this station. And they are also, it was reported to us, I believe it was earlier this week, that they're starting to install tracks basically just north of the flyover, if I recall, so around those parts here. So it seems to be making really good progress. They hope to install more rail in 2024, so fingers crossed on that front. Algonquin Station looks real nice. I mean, that's not much else to say. Queensview Station with the bridge over the 417, or as I like to call it, the IKEA Express. I'm definitely going to want to use that station more, though. Like, it's one of those that when it actually opens, I'm going to be really excited to go explore it and see this bridge over the 417, how it connects. In the trench section, plenty of photos. We have Pinecrest Station, which is located a bit further west. Bayview Station, which is... this one's really interesting to me. I don't know if we talked about it much in a previous RailChat, but I just want to say, like, it's this one. So you have Blair, that's mostly a transitway station that was built over into a stage one, so the one station on Confederation Line. Bayshore as one station that's, so it was a former transitway station that's being built into a stage 2 station, but for the most part it's going to keep a lot of its its transitway appearance on the outside. So I'm really going to be curious to explore that once it opens, because I do find it very interesting that we have a station that's going to be a weird hybrid of what used to be and what's the new thing. So definitely curious about this one. There's a lot of work obviously undergoing at the station to convert it into a rail station, but the main elements of it are still going to be the ones inherited from the transitway station. Moody Station, the final station on the western extension, also making good progress. which is going to have a fare paid bus loop and also side platforms, because apparently we cannot build island platforms in the city a lot of the time. And carrying on, so I do not believe we see it properly, but the next photo shows tracks leading into the yard, the light maintenance storage facility at Moody, which is quite well advanced by comparison to some other elements, even in the south. We'll get to that. So this one has the tracks. It's the first track installed in the west, if I recall officially. There's going to be, the tracks are going to be installed progressively from there all the way to the cut and cover tunnel. I do not know when we're going to see tracks being installed from Tony's pasture all the way to the cut and cover tunnel along Kichisipi Mikan Parkway. It'll be real interesting to follow, as they seem to be really convinced that it's going to happen all in, well, maybe not in 2024, but they expect a lot of it to happen in 2024. So finalization of the tunnel, commissioning of the stormwater pond right next to Iris, line maintenance storage facility. So the plans for testing, before I forget about it, they do plan to bring one train in the west, which is gonna do the testing of the tracks and equipment over there. So it's likely at some point we'll see a train being carried by truck to the maintenance facility in the west. It'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye out for that. My guess is we're going to see that happen in 2024, but who knows? Maybe 2025 too. Timeline for this one has been somewhat... They say 2026, like last quarter of 2026 for trial operation turning into passenger operations. I sincerely doubt it. Because as you might notice, I'll go back to the east timeline. They plan a 3-quarter period for that. I do not believe they have that close of an estimate, that they're that confident that it's going to happen within 1 quarter in 2026. Obviously, when the east extension is going to be completed, it's the same. So it's KEV, so Kiwita Vinci, that's building the 2 east and west extension. It's likely that a lot of stuff are going to be moved from one to the other as things progress on the other side. But in terms of timeline, I believe it's going to be a 2027 opening. I believe it's going to be a close call between this one and the Ram Airport station. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll open 2026, but I don't believe it. South. Southeast South. This one is... conflicting case for me, I will say, because when you walk along the stations, the progress has been really apparent. Bayview looks like it's complete. Corso Italy is looking very close to complete, and that was like the Carlton has been complete forever, because there's not much they actually needed to do other than extend the station and widen the tunnel. Well, the tunnel under the tracks. Mooney's Bay has been pretty much complete forever, because, as I said, they just extended the station. Walkley has been completed last summer of sorts, almost. So there's clearly a lot of progress that has happened. They're doing testing on a regular basis. I'm not sure if there's trains on the tracks today, but they're working on training all the staff to get ready to operate the lines. And even this is a photo I really like, by the way, the interlining of stage 2, of line 2 and line 4 at South Keys. So the pocket track is going to be used by line 4 trains, so they're going to offload passengers when they get to South Keys, go in the side track, then you're going to have the train I believe in each direction on line 2, and then after that, so that allows people to transfer between the 2 lines rather easily, and then have the track come out of the pocket track, go on the platform to load passengers going towards the airport. Really neat. I wish we had the interline service all the way to Blair, but to Bayview, sorry, but they can have everything. So yeah, they're making progress. Like, it's not, there's no question that they're making really substantial progress, because we've seen testing accelerate, and they reports on the Discord from a bunch of people do say that they're able to maintain what looks like a timetable, which is good because it's part of the commissioning activities. However, like, I mean, all the stations are pretty much in the same state of looking complete with the surroundings still needing work. It does seem at this point that what's really holding us back is not really the construction of the stations or the bus loops around them. It's part of the basically it's a commissioning and training of new operators. So the DROs, diesel rail operators needed for the line, are currently under training. There's a few of them that have been already certified and are ready to go, but not enough to sustain operations on the line. Really like airport station, by the way. Like I'm sorry, I'm like talking about something and then talking about something else, but airport station is gonna be one of those that I'm really excited to see once line 2 and line 4 opens, because first of all, it's the only station that wasn't built exactly by Transit Next. But it's gonna be interesting to see how pleasant it's going to be of an experience for someone getting to the airport and coming back to the airport, coming back from the airport to downtown with the transfers. Obviously, there's people are calling it failed from the start because of the fact there's going to need to be 2 transfers to downtown. I don't tend to agree with those arguments, because the reality is that it's going to be an easy transfer at South Keys. The fact that we have the fact that South Keys has one platform where basically you're going to step off, wait for the other train to come in and board it in the same direction, most likely, is not going to be a difficult transfer. It's annoying for someone that maybe has luggage that needs to figure out how to get to downtown, but I do not believe it's as bad as some people are arguing it will be. I'll try it once it opens. I'm definitely very excited to see how it is. I don't believe it can be much worse than taking the 97, because I never liked the 97 from the airport, but we'll see. So airport station, yeah, it's really one I'm really looking forward to exploring and see how it's set up inside, because it's gonna have a waiting area of sorts for people. So it's one of those stations that is gonna be fully enclosed inside the station, because it's going to be connected directly with the airport. So it should be a rather comfortable place to wait for a train. I'm really looking forward to that. So timeline for Stage 2 South. Testing and commissioning completing in Q2. Trial running in Q2. You see where it's going with that? Station completion in Q2. Park and ride in Q2 of 2024. So the timeline has somewhat slipped. Previously, the range was April to June for potential entry in service. At this point, April is written off. It's not going to happen in April. It's most likely going to be May at the earliest. And even then, they're not committing to a period of time within this range. It's basically, it could happen at some point from May onward, pending the success of trial running, operators training, verification of systems, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit disappointing, because we're really expecting, with the progress we've seen, and to have some better news to share at this point. Like, we're really getting ready for an opening of the line potentially in April or May. To me, I believe we're going to see a late summer opening, and I'm particularly worried about that, because so if you're familiar with how Carleton University is set up, let's switch to the map, because now we finished those slides. So this is Stage 2 at Carleton. If you're not familiar, well, Line 2 goes right through the middle of Carleton, which is great for students when the line operates, because they can take a train to Bayview and then connect with downtown, or they can go all the way to, well, what used to be Greenboro, and have access to much more places to live outside of campus, which is not a bad thing to have as a university student. The closure was supposed to be for 2 years. So the line closed on May 2nd, 2020, and was supposed to reopen by fall 2022. So in time for students to start the 2022-2023 academic year. Hasn't been the case, as you might tell. In fact, there are some students at Carleton that are going to have completed a full undergrad program of 4 years without ever getting a chance to ride the O train. And I call that disgraceful. Well, no, I mean, it's not the end of the world. People are going to survive, but it's definitely not ideal, especially when you say from the start it's going to be a 2-year closure. So I do feel for those students. I really feel for everyone at Carleton has to rely on the R2 bus, which has been, to put it politely, terrible. and that's really the polite way. I'm gonna put emphasis on that. The main reason why I say it's been terrible, basically a lot of departures missing, but also the overall frequency of the train compared to of the replacement bus compared to even the train. Obviously, like if you have a bus every 15 minutes that has seating for 70 plus passengers versus a train that can carry 400 people at once, surprise, there's going to be a backlog. And if you have buses that are not showing up on schedule, it's going to create even more of a backlog. So it's not been great for Carleton students. I do feel for them. So hopefully we see the train actually opening before the fall term starts again in 2024, but so be it. There's not much else we can do, unfortunately, than wait and see. So hopefully good news over the coming months. We'll keep an eye out, as always, for all of that, and apologies for Carleton students. So this is pretty much what the state of affairs looks like in Ottawa for Stage 2. I try not to be too pessimistic. Obviously, it's been pedestrian bridge and the Rideau River Bridge at Carleton. Yes, I just saw the comment about that in the live chat. The news are that they are making progress on the bridge, and they have to add some coatings for for permeability, to just make sure that basically, because of the river going up and down often, like just make sure that all the components of the bridge are safe and so on and so forth. So there's no provision from what was discussed in the last update to council. They said there's no specific provision for the bridge to open until line 2 and 4 opens. So it's very likely the bridge, even though might seem complete, is not going to be opened until potentially the fall term, whenever the line opens. This is worrying for two parts. First of all, this bridge is not going to be winter maintained. Oops, wrong one. This one. Imaging is not recent enough, because the pathways are along the river there are not winter maintained, so the bridge is not going to be winter maintained at first. So we possibly might have a bridge that's not going to open until 2025, depending when the line opens, whenever the line opens. So I'm slightly worried about that. I know the councillors over there have brought it up during the update. They would like to see an alternative plan, potentially, that unties the opening of the bridge with the opening of the train. We'll see what happens, but this is what the news look like for now, unfortunately. I wish I had better news on that front. Now that we've complained about Stage 2 not going as quickly as we want, let's jump to another topic. And we're going to go to Montreal. It's going to be a quick one, actually, this one. Let's talk about the Blue Line extension, which also got some news. Yay! Well, news. I'll just refer back to railfans.ca, and we'll talk about... They awarded the contract for systems! Isn't that exciting? So now we know they have systems for the extension, which are going to replace all the control systems used on the Blue Line. It is the first line that's going to get CBTC, so communications-based train control. I don't want to say it's a similar system to what's going to be used in Ottawa or on the REM, because they're part of the same general style of systems, but obviously there's going to be different variations between them. So this is one of the first major contract we see awarded on the Blue Line extension, because there's still no choice. There's still not a chosen winner for the tunnel contract, and this is basically one important milestone. So the $200 million contract was awarded to Ground Transportation Systems Canada. Someone mentioned it might be a cell track based system, but I don't recall where I heard that. So I don't think it's accurate. All I know is that Alstom was also a bidder, if I recall, for it, and basically they didn't win. So it's not going to be an Alstom based solution. That's That's pretty much what I think it means for us. I don't recall like ground transportation system Canada Inc. Actually, you know what? Let's ask Bing. Because there you go. Yeah. So it's Itachi. So it's gonna be Thales Space Build System. So that's why I probably hired Saltrak at some point. There's still work undergoing to evaluate the bids for the Blue Line extension. At this point, building the Blue Line is going to be taking more time in planning than actual building the line, and that I kind of want to mention it in a joking way, but I don't really find it funny when I think about it. Quebec as a province has a serious problem with building transit. I don't know if you've heard about it, but Longueuil is not getting... so the Longueuil project kind of got stalled. Quebec Tramway, well, CDPQ is evaluating it, but at the same time the government's doing their own consultations. There you go. That makes more sense. Consultations in big quotation mark, aka an online survey that you can register and fill as many times as you want to provide your opinion and expertise on the transit needs of a region. So I'm not going to tell you to go fill it even if you don't live around there, but hey, why not? But yeah, it's been a rocky 6 years for Legault since he took power and Coalition Avenir Québec, because the only project that got delivered in terms of transit is the RAM, well, parts of the RAM, which is not even being built by the province itself. It's being built by CDPQ. So it's really a weird situation. I really hope we see Quebec somewhat approach, maybe, you know, there's been the argument about a transit agency of sorts like Metrolinx that you have in Ontario, that we have in Ontario. So something similar for the province of Quebec. They need an office that's their whole purpose is to build infrastructure projects. Yes. The problem with that is as long as political feelings get involved and the whole premise of, well, we want to please everyone, but we don't want to piss off certain people specifically, we're not going to see projects get off the ground in Quebec. And that's somewhat worrying because obviously, like the mandate of what happens when CDPQ comes back and say, we looked at all the studies, we've done our own evaluations, and we still believe the tramway is the right option. Is Legault going to build it? I honestly don't believe so, because they're going to find whatever excuse they can not to do it. And I feel that's a common theme with a bunch of other projects in Quebec. It's Longueuil deserves a structural transit network. Montreal in the east needs a better project than what is being proposed right now. And it's problematic that this is considered a huge milestone for transit projects in Quebec when there's been literally nothing else happening for the last 20 years. So it's not surprising that projects are expensive, because if you don't do something often, you cannot be good at it. That's why we do one RailChat every 6 months. Jan McKenna suggests thinking that CDPQ will propose automated. Yes, but how do you integrate it in the city? Like, are you going to build... Because I'm biased. We all know how my feelings are about Quebec City. Obviously, I am very biased and very aware of that. Like, I do believe that even for $8 billion, they should build a tramway as is. I think the tramway plan is a good first step, as long as we build upon that plan down the road. That includes future phases and future connections to, for example, Gardes Palais or the airport or all the other neighborhoods in the city that are not getting something right away. It doesn't mean everything needs to be a tramway. It just means that we need to have a comprehensive vision of what we need to build to serve the population. And piecemeal projects like that are problematic. So if we end up with a project that builds an automated line, like I somewhat, it could work. I'm not saying automated's not possible to make work in the city. I just mean in the sense of, like, how do you integrate it? Because you have restrictions in terms of historical heritage in, for example, older parts of Quebec. So do you just focus on Sainte-Foy at first and don't build anything towards like Colline Parlementaire or other neighborhoods of the city? I find it's a complicated balance that will need more reflection than that for now. But and I feel that the closest we got to a ready-to-go project was the tramway. We we're literally in the procurement process. The city had a plan to potentially take over the construction by themselves and piecemeal the different elements instead of having a massive multi-billion-dollar contract, which I think it was a refreshing take, but I guess not to the province. So this is a bit disappointing. More positive news. Nate Blatchford opened on January 20th. Good job, Edmonton. No, but seriously, I'm kind of like, I sound cynical when I say good job in Mountain, but it's great to see they're actually building things, and not everything needs to be a multi-billion-dollar massive expansion of a line. You can do piecemeal extensions, and this is great because it is 2 stations that are going to serve. Nate Blatchford Market's going to serve our whole district. It's not a station that you're building in the middle of something already built. It's building a station that's going to serve people that are going to live right next to it in the coming years. And I do wish we had more of that approach throughout the country, because if we built metro extensions to serve or tram lines or bus lines or whatever we want to build, if we built them in projection in regards of where people will be, we'd spend a lot less money than building after 20, 30, 40 years after people moved in and already became car dependent. Just a thought. So this is some of the more recent news. Obviously, there's going to be... we hope that there's going to be plans to go further. There are plans on paper to go further than Nate Blatchford. I don't believe they're funded currently. Phase 2, Phase 3. So hopefully funding comes out sooner than later. We talked about it, but I'm just going to... I really like that picture for some reason. This is one of the east of the O-train trains on the 174 flyover, so that was nice. Those are some of the photos we took during the event. We have, like I said, we have a short video on the channel where we show more of the footage of what happened. So it's nice to see there's progress, and like tangible progress, not just construction timelines moving forward and backwards. So we're really excited to hear more. As for I think we're reaching a good point to conclude and cover the last few rapid points. Few things I want to mention. So if you haven't had the chance yet, obviously make sure you visit railfans.ca. We try to keep up to date with all the press releases from most organizations, and obviously we try to it's the best place to catch all the new videos and information on what we're working on. So for over the coming weeks, I do not believe there are concrete plans as it stands right now. We're obviously the big one we're gonna check over the coming months is for line 2 opening line 2 and line 4 opening. So this is something we expect that's gonna happen hopefully this summer. So we're gonna definitely attend that and try to get as much footage and information for you all as it becomes available. The other one that we're keeping an eye out also is for... I completely forgot to talk about the RAM. That's surprising coming from me. Yeah, I didn't talk about the RAM. I guess that could be another RailChat at some point. But the obviously, if the RAM actually opens in 2024, they just posted that they've completed installation of the OCS throughout the Anselm and the Montagne branch. So I am somewhat confident that they're gonna start testing further than what we've seen last week. So testing is underway on the RAM, which is good to see, because we obviously there's still questions about how much work is left in the tunnel to actually complete the lines. So it's a bit hard to identify if this is going to open this year or 2025. The optimistic in me wants to believe 2024. The realistic in me doesn't, because the fact we haven't had an update on what happens in the tunnel since we last visited in August 2022, if I recall. Yeah, August 2022, I believe. Yeah, since then, that there hasn't been a single update about what's happening in the tunnel kind of worries me. So hopefully we'll get good news or news of any sort. And this is some things we're going to track for sure. Finch West, if it actually opens in 2024, or Ontario, it ain't opening this year. I don't believe it is. But hey, we'll keep an eye. We'll be optimistic. Like the more the merrier, as they say. The one I sincerely do not believe is going to open this year, and I really hope. Well, it's not. I hope it doesn't open this year. It's one of those predictions I sincerely don't believe it's going to happen. The famous cross line. My God, cross line. Eglinton Crosstown. I don't think it's going to happen in 2024. Not to complain about Metrolinx too much, because I think there's reasons why maybe the Metrolinx approach can work better than maybe the Quebec approach of, well, let's all try to do small things individually and then be surprised that nothing works. When your CEO pretty much says, we'll give you an update when we have an update, it's pretty much a polite way to say we do not even know ourselves. And timelines slip all the time. No surprise there. It's mostly in the sense that it's somewhat discouraging to be told that we're going to be more transparent about the progress on this project and give you a better idea of how things are going. And then when they provide us an update, it's pretty much to say we do not have an update. Like how can you put any credit in what they say when this is the kind of update we get from Metrolinx? I hope we get good news. Like, I really wish for anyone that lives around there. Like, when Crosstown is in function, it's going to be a great addition to Toronto. Until then, it's going to be a sore thumb for anyone that lives right next to it that has suffered through almost 10 years of construction, maybe more than 10 years at this point, of construction without any real improvement in their transit, in their commutes, but also delays and cost increases that have been happening throughout the project with no real transparency to the people mostly affected by it. So hopefully we get some news on that front, more than just we don't know when it's going to happen, which would be great. And I think this is a good point to end it. So actually, wait a second. When I say other news and the RailChat, it pretty much means I'm gonna ramble about things until I run out of breath. So one last thing I want to talk about is the SkyTrain. Yeah, I know I didn't really mention the SkyTrain so far, but Capstan Station is really making some really good progress. I don't know if basically most of you are aware of it, but so this is an infill station. This station is being built along the tracks of the active Canada line, and it's been really nice to see the progress pictures. I'm not going to share them here because unless Translink have some, I'm just going to check real quick, but I do not believe. So we had someone share some pictures on the Discord, and like this is. Well, I'll share this one from Translink themselves, but like this is an update on Capstan Station provided in August 2023, and basically they're building a line along a station along the operational line, which I always find fascinating. So this station is making really good progress. In August, the structural elements were already installed, but at this point, they're getting basically in the process of like installing the finishes, and I would hope commissioning the rest of the station sooner than later. So it's been delayed to later in 2024, but well, there you go. The Daily Hive. So this was in July, and do I have a more recent photo? No, because they use the same one as. But basically, like the artistic rendering, I know it's not exactly accurate, but the trims, the dark gray trimmings and everything else is starting to take shape at the station. I'm somewhat disappointed I don't have a more recent photo to show, but you know what, Wikipedia will do. They're clearly making good progress on it, so it's not going as quickly as they were expecting, but hopefully this is another addition we're going to see in 2024. to the SkyTrain network. I will keep an eye out for the information on it, so whenever it's going to open. But it's really nice to see that in 2024 there's a lot happening throughout Canada in terms of transit projects. So hopefully 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027 are all looking to be really busy years for rail fans throughout the country, because we're going to have potentially, we should have, Stage 2 South, Stage 2 East, Stage 2 West in Ottawa, so that's three distinct openings. REM to Anselm and de Montagne, REM to the airport, potentially, 2027, that brings us there. We have the Green Line in Calgary. We have the Blue Line extension is not going to be until 2030. Let's be real there. Calgary Green Line, Valley Line West extension. There's, I know I'm missing some, but there's at least 10 openings in the next 4 to 5 years expected. I'm looking at the SkyTrain. Why didn't I think about it? Broadway Subway project and a bunch of other things. So there's a lot to look forward to in Canada right now. As a rail fan, I do wish we always had projects on the roll like that. So it's a great decade for that, I guess. But not all provinces are doing it equally, because of all those projects, there's none of them that have been funded by the province of Quebec other than the RAM. Food for thought. So anyway, yes, Mississauga or Ontario, thank you. Yeah, I always feel like I'm forgetting over Ontario. Finch West, also obviously, Eglinton Crosstown West, Ontario Line, whenever that opens. I think it's going to be 2031, 32 or something like that. So there's a lot of projects that are coming online, are being built right now. So it's easy to be optimistic, but also it's easy, even though it's easy to remain cynical and say that things are not going to open when they're promised to open, at the very least it's great to see that we're actually building things in Canada and not just staring at the wall and saying, look what we could build. And then we have HFR. But anyway, this is what's going to conclude this RailChat. Huge thanks for everyone for joining us online tonight. Today. It's still sunny outside. How great is that? If you haven't done so already, make sure if you feel like leaving a thumbs up, we do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet to RailFans Canada also, I think it's a great time to do so, because we have a lot more content coming over the coming months as more and more things potentially open or delayed further. So we're really looking forward to sharing more of them with you all. We also have a lovely Discord community where I ramble about things, and we have a always larger group of people interacting and sharing their own snapshots and perspective on projects. So feel free to join. We're always happy to see more and more people. And until then, have a great evening, everyone, and we hope to see you in the next stream. And I really hope it works.